Welcome back to the channel. Today we have something truly chilling for you. We're diving deep into the dark side of vacation rentals, a place where comfort and terror collide. These are not just stories, they are real-life nightmares experienced by unsuspecting Airbnb guests. People just like you and me, looking for a getaway, a change of scenery, only to find themselves trapped in a horror movie they never signed up for. So sit back, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself for 3 disturbing true Airbnb horror stories that will make you think twice before booking your next stay. Our first story takes us to a cozy cabin nestled in the heart of the woods. This cabin, with its rustic charm and serene surroundings, seemed like the perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of city life. It was a place where one could disconnect from the digital world and reconnect with nature. Imagine this: the sun setting, casting long shadows through the trees, the golden hues of the evening light filtering through the dense foliage, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Inside, the crackling fire warming the room, casting a soft, comforting glow. It was a perfect picture of peace, right? The kind of place where worries melt away and tranquility takes over. But for one young woman, Sarah, this idyllic getaway was about to turn into her worst nightmare. Sarah had come to the cabin seeking solace, a break from her hectic life. Little did she know her sanctuary was anything but safe. It started subtly, a feeling of unease, like she was being watched. At first she dismissed it as paranoia, a trick of the mind brought on by the isolation of the woods. She brushed it off as nerves, the solitude of the woods playing tricks on her mind. But the feeling persisted, gnawing at her, making it impossible to fully relax. One evening as she was changing, she noticed a faint blinking light near the smoke detector. It was so subtle that she almost missed it. Curiosity turned to ice-cold fear as she realized it was a camera lens. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Someone had been watching her. Panic surged through her as she frantically searched the cabin, uncovering more hidden cameras. In the bedroom, the living room, even the bathroom. Each discovery was more horrifying than the last. She found cameras even disguised as buttons on the remote control. The level of intrusion was unimaginable. Every private moment, every conversation had been recorded. The thought of someone watching her every move was unbearable. The sanctuary of the cabin had become a cage, her every move documented by an unseen observer. The isolation that once felt peaceful now felt suffocating. The police were called, an investigation launched, but the perpetrator was never found. The cameras were sophisticated, leaving no trace of their origin. Sarah was left deeply traumatized, forever haunted by the violation of her privacy. The cabin, once a place of refuge, had become a symbol of her worst fears. The chilling realization that in the age of technology, nowhere is truly safe, stayed with her. The experience left her wary of technology, always wondering if she was being watched. Our next story takes us to a charming Victorian-era house, a place steeped in history, with an aura that speaks of times long past. Each creaking floorboard and faded photograph whispering tales of the past, stories of lives once lived within its walls. A young couple, Emily and Ben, eager to experience the charm of a bygone era, booked this Airbnb for a romantic weekend. They were drawn to the house's vintage allure, its promise of a cozy, nostalgic escape from their busy lives. But their romantic getaway quickly descended into a terrifying ordeal. What started as a quaint adventure soon turned into a nightmarish experience. It began with subtle occurrences, a chill down the spine, an inexplicable shiver that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. The feeling of being watched, an unsettling sensation that someone or something was observing their every move. The sensation of a presence unseen. Then, things escalated. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. Objects began to move inexplicably, a book flying off the shelf with a force that defied logic, as if hurled by an invisible hand, a lampshade swaying violently despite the stillness of the air, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. One night, Emily awoke to the sound of whispering voices, faint and chilling, emanating from the empty hallway. The whispers were unintelligible yet filled with a sense of urgency and dread. The temperature plummeted, an icy breath seeming to whisper her name. The cold was unnatural, seeping into their bones and filling the room with an eerie frost. Terrified, Emily and Ben tried to flee, but the front door wouldn't budge, as if held shut by an unseen force. Panic set in as they struggled with the door, their fear mounting with each passing second. They huddled together, fear gripping their hearts, as the house seemed to come alive around them. The walls creaked and groaned, and the air was filled with an almost palpable sense of malevolence. They endured a long, terrifying night, the whispers and cold spots a constant torment. Every creak, every shadow seemed to harbor a threat, and sleep was impossible. As dawn broke, the paranormal activity ceased as abruptly as it began. The first rays of sunlight brought a fragile sense of relief, dispelling the darkness that had enveloped them. They fled the house, vowing never to return. Their romantic weekend had turned into a harrowing ordeal they would never forget. The charming Victorian house, once a symbol of historical beauty, was forever tainted by the unseen guests that shared their space. Its allure was now overshadowed by the chilling memories of that night. A chilling reminder that some places hold secrets best left undisturbed. The house stood as a silent witness to the events, its walls holding the echoes of the past and the whispers of the uninvited. Chapter 3. The Hostage. Our final story takes us to what seemed like an ordinary suburban home, a place that promised comfort and convenience. Nestled in a quiet neighborhood, the house stood as a beacon of tranquility, with its well-manicured lawn and warm, inviting lights. It was the kind of place where one would expect to find peace and relaxation, not the setting for a harrowing ordeal. Mark, a businessman on a work trip, booked this Airbnb expecting a routine stay. He had traveled extensively for work, and this suburban home seemed like the perfect retreat after long days of meetings and presentations. The reviews were glowing, and the hosts seemed accommodating and friendly in their messages. He never imagined he'd become a prisoner in his own temporary home. The first night was uneventful, but as the days went by, Mark began to notice oddities that set him on edge. The host's behavior grew increasingly peculiar, and the once cozy home started to feel like a cage. It started with a strange feeling, a sense of unease that settled over him as he interacted with the overly friendly host. The host's questions about his schedule and personal life became more intrusive, and Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The host seemed a little too eager, a little too interested in Mark's schedule. Every time Mark tried to leave the house, the host would find an excuse to keep him there, offering meals, suggesting local attractions, or simply engaging him in long, drawn-out conversations. His unease turned to terror when he found himself locked inside the house. One morning, as he prepared to leave for a meeting, he discovered that the front door wouldn't budge. Panic set in as he tried every exit, only to find them all securely locked. The doors wouldn't open, the windows were barred shut. He was trapped. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a malfunction, it was a deliberate act. The host had turned his temporary sanctuary into a prison. Panic surged through him as he realized the true nature of his situation. He was at the mercy of a stranger whose intentions were becoming increasingly sinister. The once friendly host now seemed like a predator, and Mark was his prey. He was a prisoner in the hands of a psychopathic host. The host's demeanor shifted from overly friendly to menacing, and Mark's attempts to reason with him were met with cold, calculating responses. It was clear that the host enjoyed the power he held over Mark. Days turned into a blurry nightmare. Mark lost track of time as the host manipulated his environment, controlling the lights, the temperature, and even the food he was given. The isolation and constant surveillance took a toll on his mental state. Mark was isolated, cut off from the outside world, his every move monitored by the watchful eye of his captor. Cameras were hidden in every corner, and the host's voice would echo through the house, reminding Mark that he was never alone. The host, a master manipulator, toyed with Mark, his words a chilling mix of charm and menace. He would alternate between offering false hope and making veiled threats, keeping Mark in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. Just when Mark's hope began to dwindle, he discovered a hidden cell phone, missed calls flashing on the screen. It was a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in his otherwise bleak situation. He quickly dialed the last number that had called, praying for a miracle. It was the police, alerted by his concerned colleagues who had reported him missing. Relief washed over him as he heard the voice on the other end, assuring him that help was on the way. A rescue operation was underway. The police coordinated their efforts, surrounding the house and preparing for a swift and decisive action to free Mark from his captor. As sirens pierced the quiet suburban night, Mark's heart soared with a mix of hope and terror. He knew that his ordeal was almost over, but the fear of what the host might do in his final moments kept him on edge. The host, realizing his game was up, made a desperate attempt to escape, but the police apprehended him. The sight of the host being led away in handcuffs was a moment of vindication for Mark. Mark was safe, but the ordeal left him deeply scarred, a chilling reminder that even in the most ordinary of settings, evil can lurk beneath the surface. The experience changed him, leaving him wary and cautious, forever haunted by the memory of his captivity. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more chilling tales. Remember, these stories, while unsettling, serve as a stark reminder that danger can lurk even in the most unexpected places. And remember, always be cautious when booking your next stay. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. Sweet dreams.